inch, I'm never coming home. I'm going to live off the land without resupply, only reliant on my gear and my skills and my absolute will to endure. You guys have heard this concept before, right? We probably all have. And if you haven't, well, welcome to the concept of I'm never coming home. It sounds like a freaking epic adventure, doesn't it? Like a plot line, a story ripped from a Jack London novel. But unfortunately for the majority of us, that's exactly what it is. It's a work of fiction, and it's a work of fiction that will get you killed in a very short period of time, whether by apex predators or from starvation. So before you guys think that the concept of I'm never coming home and I'm just going to wander off in the wilderness and magically live off the land somehow makes sense, you got to watch this video. And if you're new to this channel, my name is Blitz, and we're about to break down the common myths that surround the I'm never coming home concept and how to build a long-range sustainment pack that actually makes sense and will enable you to survive in the real world. So stay tuned. Myth number 1, I can fit everything I need in one bag. This makes zero sense to anyone with experience packing out long-range sustainment gear, or for that matter, any gear at all, from 24-hour to 72 hours. The mission has to dictate the loadout, and for the concept of I'm never coming home, it's literally impossible to take everything you need to handle any situation. You may never be coming home, but 100% bet you will never be able to account for all the variables. Now, I have seen a lot of people try to negate this concept and say, okay, fine, I have my pack, but I'm gonna grab like one of those hunter's carts that they put their fresh kill in, and I'm gonna drag that around, and that concept just makes no sense to me. You're gonna have a pack, you're gonna have a cart, and somehow you're gonna transport this through some post-apocalyptic landscape, over rough terrain, over mountains, over hills. It just doesn't make any sense. So you have to define the mission and the scenario, and then you pack out your gear accordingly. Myth number 2, hunting and living off the land. Last time I checked, this is the year of our Lord AD 2019. Humans are far removed from the land of our ancestors and living a self-sufficient lifestyle. Hell, even the pioneers who settled this land from east to west had tons of support in terms of horses, tools, wagons, firearms, and more. Literally nobody was rolling solo with just a backpacker, living off the land and being successful in that venture. And even with all that support, many pioneers succumbed to disease, starvation, and injuries. Now, okay, stop, fine, yes, Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett, these names come to mind when you think of living off the land. Well, yeah, these guys would do it for a short period of time, and then they would go back into civilization. The only people who were truly living off the land were the Native Americans. And they were still highly susceptible to disease, infection, starvation, floods, natural disasters, you name it. And they were operating as a tribal unit, providing them with a high level of redundancy and support. They weren't just living alone off the land. I'm not saying it can't be done, but if you guys think about it, it sounds pretty damn far-fetched. And even hell, go watch Alone. You see what those guys do. They go out there in the woods with their gear and they end up starving to death. Myth number 3, implying that it's just you who's never coming home. Okay, that's fine. Maybe you're a single incel living in your mom's basement and you just decide to up and leave the world behind. But for the majority of us, we have girlfriends, we have wives, we have families, and people who rely on us. So when we consider survival, for some reason, it's common just to focus on ourselves, because maybe that's the first point, right, of focus, and that makes sense. But we need to extend that focus beyond ourselves. What do I need for long-term survival? Because I'm not a one-man army sustaining myself off the land. This concept is just so far removed from reality. I mean, when the moment arises to leave and never return, I mean, aren't you taking your family, your significant other? What about them? Are you leaving them behind? Are you literally leaving everything behind? And sure, there are some edge cases where people have done that because they have committed some travesty against the system, or they're single and they just want to wander the land and have a really awesome adventure. And yes, that happens, but for the majority of us, this concept of solo survival and leaving everything behind makes no sense. So those are just a few of the problems with this bullshit inch fantasy. But hey, listen, we don't live in the problem. We live in the solution. So let's break this down and make it easier to digest and remove some of the gray areas from the I'm never coming home inch bag theory. First off, start your inch bag build like anything else. Like you would build your 24-hour pack, your 48-hour pack, your 72-hour pack, your bug out bag, whatever. The first move you make is you build in that basic layer of survival essentials, shelter, fire, water, etc., just like you do for any other loadout. Number two, you have to define the mission and scenario and pack your gear accordingly. Now here's a few hypothetical situations that you might want to consider for never coming home. Are you a Chris McCandless, a romantic adventurer to the Alaskan backcountry to find yourself and connect with Mother Nature? Okay, cool. Well, in that case, you probably don't need a chest rig, body armor, and 240 rounds of ammunition. Your focus is maybe best directed towards tools and weapons for shelter building and hunting. Second scenario, are you fleeing a complex situation in a post-SHTF world with a complex threat matrix? Okay, in this scenario, maybe a lightweight chest rig and a battle rifle might serve you better than a scoped weapon and a bow. Next scenario, maybe you've committed some crime, some travesty that is so horrific that you have to flee. You have to get the hell out of Dodge, and you have to go somewhere remote and hunker down and survive. And the first person who comes to mind, and probably one of the most famous one, is Eric Rudolph. And if you don't know about him, not only was he infamous for the bombing at the Olympics, but he was also an anti-abortion activist who attacked abortion clinics and just did a bunch of stuff that I just really can't endorse. Now, what did he do? He went and hid out in the mountains. But he had that 1 foot in the urban area where he had support from others, and he had his other foot in the wilderness, and he was able to successfully evade capture for many, many years. And it was ultimately his, I guess, lack of situational awareness or whatever the case is. He just basically screwed up and got caught dumpster diving, to make a long story short. But he was able to survive for a long period of time. But even in that scenario, with the skills that he had, he was still relying on others for support. So now that we have the base layer of survival essentials defined, and we know what the mission or scenario is, we have to figure out what is the environment in which we plan on surviving. Is it a tropical climate zone like where I live here in North Florida and South Georgia? Okay, well in this case, I probably don't need serious cold weather gear. Well, it's not probably, I don't. The temps don't get low enough to even think about having a sub-zero sleeping bag. So I roll a lot lighter with my sleep system. But if you're planning on bugging out to the Canadian wilderness, God bless you, God help you in that journey, then you need to really think seriously about your base layer and about your sleep system. Next, you have to figure out your food situation. I have found through training and lots of tweaking that I can pack in about 2 weeks of food in my inch bag. Now, you guys might say, well, that's crazy. 2 weeks of food, that's all you can fit? Yeah, unfortunately, unless I literally want my entire pack full of food. Now, those meals, I'm very intentional about. I pack in food that is high fat, moderate protein, and typically high carb, because I want those fat sources and those carb sources for energy. And I also want the protein to maintain what muscle mass I have. And the average per meal is between 800 to 1200 calories a day. Now, you guys might say that's absolutely crazy. Well, I would say sit down right now and figure out how many calories you eat a day. For me, I only eat about 1600 calories a day, and I live a very active lifestyle. So for me, if I'm moving on foot with a pack, I think a good balance is a little bit lower than the calories I take in on a daily basis. And most of the time, I don't even take in that many calories. I might take in 1,000 calories a day because I'm trying to cut weight now for a fight coming up in a few months. So for you, that might differ, but the best way to figure out a good baseline of calories is to sit down and log the food you eat for a couple days, maybe use an app like MyFitnessPal, And then you have a good idea of how much food you're eating. And you can also determine your maintenance calories off of that. A rough estimate for maintenance calories is taking your body weight and multiplying that by 10. Now, how I like to break up my food is between quick meals of MREs and survival rations that require no cooking, that are stupid simple. I just open them up and I eat them. And not only do they not require cooking and that effort behind it, but it also enables me to practice operational security in a hostile situation. I might be in an environment where a cook fire would attract very much unwanted attention. You know, the smoke, the smell, the light would not be a good idea. So I want to be able to sit down real quick, grab a bite of something to eat, and keep on moving. The other side of my food packing is more complex. I pack in dehydrated meats, vegetables, backpacker style meals like what you would get from Mountain House. And also, I'll be honest with you, I like to toss in some fresh food, some apples, some oranges. I know those are gonna go bad, but I will eat those initially and then eliminate those from my pack. And it's just nice to have some fresh food. And then finally, I also supplement with salt, powdered milk, eggs, and honey. So now we have the survival essentials packed, a sleep system defined, the mission, the scenario, and also the food. This is when you actually layer on the custom stuff, such as a bow, maybe an axe, communication equipment, seeds, etc. Bearing in mind that these items absolutely add weight to your pack, so I suggest only packing items that you're actually going to use and that you are trained on. Now you're probably feeling good with your inch bag loadout, but you're absolutely not done. You can think about it and you can pack it, but you have to get out and train with your gear. You got to hit the field. Go hiking with your pack. Stay out for a night, then 2 nights, and then extend that to 3, and so on. You get the idea. During these trips, take notes on what you needed, what you liked, what you didn't like, and then based on those notes, you write up an after-action report that gives you insight on how to better customize your bag and drop any dead weight. For example, did you forget wet wipes? Did you forget a sharpening stone for your axe? Did you find that a combination of a heavy-duty full-tang knife in your folding saw was really all you needed, and you didn't need a large axe with you? It just didn't make sense. So that's how you go out and train, and then you come back, you compile those notes, and really truly customize your gear. So you continue to repeat this cycle of training, creating the after-action reports, and customizing your gear per your specifications. And then finally, your gear in your bag will be 100% solid and good to go for your needs. Now it's time to really get serious and figure out where the hell you're actually going to go. A lot of people seem to have this concept of just being on foot and wandering off into the wilderness. Well, that makes no sense to me. It sounds like a really shitty plan that will end up getting you killed. So what I like to do, since I don't actually have remote land that I purchased, I just find remote area in a wildlife management area. Once I find a good spot to set up with the resources that I want in the area, I'm talking trees, water, concealment, all that good stuff, I build a super shelter. This might take a couple months, it might take a year, hell, I might even build a cabin there. But I have a secure route in and I have a secure route out. Then after I'm done with that whole process, and obviously through that process I've learned a lot, I then transport some caches out to that location, and I just pepper the area with 3 or 4 caches of food, weapons, and related supplies. Then, depending on the distance to this location, I might find it a good idea to add a few caches along the route. I mean, if it's only 50 miles, maybe I don't need caches, but if it's 200-300 miles to this location, then absolutely I do need an option for resupply. One thing that I didn't cover because it's such a big variable, but I want to touch on it briefly, is transportation. Hopefully you're driving within some reasonable distance of your survival retreat or wherever you plan on stepping off and hitting the trail. I think a lot of people have this concept of, 30, 40, hundreds of miles of hiking and, like I mentioned, dragging this cart along the road. And the first thing that comes to mind is the road, right? You've probably read the novel, you've seen the book, and you know how the guy's out there with his son in this post-apocalyptic landscape, and he's pushing the shopping cart full of everything they have. And when people talk about, having a backpack with this cart, that image immediately jumps to mind. So hopefully you're going to drive within some reasonable distance of your final destination. All right, so if that is the case, or you can drive almost there, then that's even better. Then you have your vehicle that has all your other gear in it, and maybe you can park that vehicle, hide it somewhere, maybe within 10 miles of your survival retreat, and pack in your gear. Make a couple trips, bring in your pack with all your primary supplies, and then go back to your vehicle and bring in weapons and your 50 cal and all that cool guy stuff and your body armor, whatever. But transportation to that final destination is critical, that you define that scenario. And hopefully you're driving. I plan on driving, and if I can't, my location is set up within enough of a reasonable distance where I can walk there over the course of about a week. So depending on how you're getting there, whether you're driving or walking or a little bit of both, you have to have that route defined, and you have to take in any variables that could impede you on that route, whether that's roadblocks, whether that's a vehicle breakdown, whether your boots fall apart, whatever. You need to have some alternates also planned on top of that primary route. Okay, so that's all I have today, guys. I appreciate you watching. Hit me up in those comments like you always do, and I'm curious, to hear how you guys are handling your long-term survival packs, your inch bags. What do you think of this concept, and how do you go about making it work? I'd really be curious to know. So hit me up in those comments. Let me know what the deal is with that. And then finally, guys, for any sort of well-rounded survivalist, you need a network of like-minded people around you. So I am a strong proponent of the Warrior Tribe. I am a member of this group. It is a private Facebook group that indeed costs money to join, but there is an incredible value you get from a very small price of membership. And that value goes well beyond learning about different survival gear loadouts and stuff like that. Hell, you can do that in any free Facebook group, but this goes deeper. They have survival challenges, right? So you go through and you meet all the requirements of a survival challenge, from fitness goals to packing your bug out bag to training with your gear, and you have the opportunity to win a big giveaway of gear, everything from backpacks and hydration to knives and you name it. So that's a cool feature of the Warrior Tribe that I haven't seen in any other membership style Facebook groups. But then beyond that, they also have this personal component to it. It's a family, and people share stuff that has really helped me, everything from dealing with the loss of a loved one to dealing with maybe a decrease in income to finding a new job, or anything in life that happens on a day-to-day basis. Because let's be honest, it's fun to think about bug out situations and inch bags and living off the bounty of nature, but in the end, survival is more day-to-day. It's about those relationships you have with your children, with your spouse, with your significant other, how you deal with people at your job, how you handle problems and roadblocks that come up in your life. So the Warrior Tribe provides that level of support on a personal level that is just amazing. So I strongly suggest you guys check out the link down there in the pinned post and also the description, and I will see you there. Thanks a lot for watching, and stay tuned for the next video. Peace.